We have completed chapter 2, and you may have noticed that some of these topics are a little esoteric, tough pronunciations, and I get that. And I have some good news and some bad news for you. Now, here's the bad news. The bad news is the early chapters are a bit difficult. It's likely you've never heard of the topic before, very detail oriented. Now, here's the good news. As we get into March and April, the topics we're going to be learning about are going to be much more familiar, much more easy to understand. However, on the exam in May, we're not certain where the College Board is going to pull materials from, so you need to be sharp in all of it. And we will review this right before the exam, but your repository of content, whether it's flashcards or digital, periodically please revisit them so they stay fresh in your mind. I don't want an item from September that you haven't touched again to show up in May and you're going to be flustered going, oh my goodness, it's been so long, I don't remember. Okay, anyway, as for the terms, in case you missed class today, here are the terms that we need to know. Now, state building. When you look at civilizations, these big empires emerge, these big states, whether they're kingdoms, nation state. So what happens are people consolidate and they form these really big units of people. Okay, empire being the most common throughout history. And the chapter spoke of a few of them. So the Song Dynasty. Now, the Song Dynasty is considered a golden age, and things are going really well. And China, again, being around for 5,000 years, they've had their ups, they've had their downs. This was an up. Now, what's synonymous with the Song Dynasty are the four great inventions of China: the compass, gunpowder, printing, and the printing press. These are the main items that make the Song Dynasty the Golden Age. Not to confuse you, for those who know the Gutenberg printing press, that is another printing press, a more advanced printing press. However, those are considered the four great inventions of China. Now, Champa rice, and I get some looks from people going, really? I took this AP class and we're learning about rice. It's not the rice itself. Well, maybe it is. Okay, there's certain staple crops that keep people alive. And obviously, rice is a staple crop that keeps billions of people living today and back then. But what made it more important was that Champa rice is a very involved process. It's a very complicated process. It requires a lot of coordination, a lot of scientific knowledge, a lot of labor. To coordinate all of that, it facilitated stronger governments. It facilitated advancements in all of those fields to create this staple crop. So that's why Champa rice is one of the terms. Now, in terms of Confucianism, it's a revisiting from the first chapter. Again, it's the order that kept China together. Okay, and then we already went over that chapter 1. But again, real quickly, boss is always right over the employee, father is always right over son, husband and wife, older brother, younger brother, superior friend, inferior friend. Now, to Western eyes, it's a little harsh. However, it worked. Okay, China being around for 5,000 years is some evidence to that point. Now, Chinese civil service exam. Now, if you don't know what a civil servant is, these would be people who would be paid for by tax dollars. I'm a civil servant. Tax dollar, I'm a public school teacher. Tax money pays my salary to teach children. That's post office, the DMV, all that sort of thing. So what it created was this idea of merit over nepotism, meaning, hey, you have to earn this. Now, think about this. If you have to earn your position, it's going to require some work on your part. You need to get some schooling. You need to get certified, that sort of thing. And that's important. And if you look at the modern world, for example, my job as a civil servant, I had to pass 3 exams. If I did not pass them, they would not let me into the classroom. And I think that's a good thing. You don't want a bunch of riffraff in public service. Anyway, the Abbasid Caliphate. Now, the Abbasid Caliphate is synonymous with the Middle East. Now, only the tail end of it, 1258. So bear in mind, our exams can be 1200 on. However, you can see this example of Dar al-Islam, which is the dominion of Islam. Now, of the 5 world religions, Islam spread the fastest. And this caliphate facilitated that spread. So hopefully in your mind, if it shows up on the exam in May, Abbasid, Dar al-Islam, and you connect the two, thinking of the Middle East. Okay, so you can see there's these big groupings of people all over the world, in China, in the Middle East, all over the place. Okay, the Mamluk Sultanate. Now, there's actually an insult in Italian, not a harsh insult, but if somebody's being foolish or ridiculous, you go, oh, you Mameluke. They're actually, that insult stems from this. But the Mamluks were the people of India, okay, and Pakistan. And these were the first of the Delhi sultanates. And if you look at India, India had four major dynasties, okay? The Delhi, okay, so the Mughal were the first, that's before our time. And then you have Gupta and Delhi, and then the Mughal eventually, which we'll learn a lot about in the future, okay? So again, the point of this whole thing is these big empires were emerging all over the world, okay? The Vijayanagara Empire, yes, I said that, that was a toughie, are the people of southern India. And again, India is not a, one flavor place. A lot of diversity within that country. But we have these big empires that are just emerging during this time period of history, and they become the heavy hitters. They become the players. The Chola Kingdom, okay, if you look at the Chola Kingdom, it goes all the way through Eastern India, all through Southeast Asia, into Indonesia, okay, Malaysia, and these are the people that started, trading. And once these big empires are formed, they start interacting with each other. They start trading with each other. Cultural diffusion. They're learning religion, ideas. Sometimes they made each other sick with their, immune system sort of stuff. But again, once these kingdoms emerge and they start interacting, they call that increased hemispheric interaction. And it just kind of gets faster and faster and bigger. But we'll see that acceleration as we go through class. Now, the Mali Empire are the people of West Africa. It also created the wealthiest human being to have ever lived, a man named Mansa Musa. And the Mali Empire, it spread Islam. That's a big part of it. Also, the big commodities, gold and salt. And these are the glue that kept these West African trading empires flowing. Very, very successful. Now, whereas before, I was talking a little bit about trading, the Chola Kingdom starts connecting with the Indian Ocean trade route. The Mali Empire was part of the Trans-Saharan trade route. And then the third major one was the one from China to Rome, which was the Silk Road. But these were the routes that increased hemispheric interaction. Okay, again, Mansa Musa, the richest man who ever lived. Okay, Mali did all right, as you can see. Now, the Aztecs, now I'm moving into the Americas now. The Aztecs are the people of modern Mexico. And what this showed was the Aztecs were very advanced in terms of government and economics. And the story of the Aztecs, when the Spanish came in and polluted them with their smallpox and were very destructive to them, they tried to make the Aztecs, try to justify it. They're savages, they're heathens, whatever. Well, this tribute system is, I would argue, indisputable evidence the Aztecs were a very advanced civilized group of people. Okay, the Midas system of the Inca. Now, this was a forced labor system that to allocate indigenous labor to mines and refineries. Now, why it was important, it was evidence that the state was very advanced, very connected in terms of how they needed to go about doing things. And so it was important because the state controlled their subjects, and in turn, it's why the empire was having so many agricultural projects, including these mountain roads and all sorts of stuff. Again, this is just the tip of the iceberg. We're going to learn about these people in more detail. Feudalism. Now, feudalism existed in Russia, Japan, and Europe. Lasted a really long time because it was simple, real easy. It was the exchange of loyalty for some compensation. So the peasants, food, they got protection from the knights. Knights did the protection. They got a chunk of land from the lord. Lord was loyal to the king. The king would give them a chunk of land called a fiefdom, and it worked. Now, why isn't that a pleasant way to live? If you were a peasant, it's a pretty rough gig. However, its simplicity, it worked a long time, over 1,000 years in 3 different places. Okay, now when you look at all of these big states, okay, religion is part of it. Religion is part of it because a lot of people hit the road to spread the religion, and that cultural diffusion added to some things. When people were trading, when they were in port, they would talk shop, they would talk about their religion. Um, so religion and state building are connected. There's no way you can separate the two together. Now, the House of Wisdom is in Baghdad, which is in modern day Iraq. And again, this shows the Middle Eastern world at this time producing a lot of the great works of mathematics, science. A ton of our stars have Arabic names to this day because of this. And they translated a lot of the ancient knowledge from Western civilization and kept it going. So the House of Wisdom in Baghdad, it goes to show you empires aren't just about making money. Empires and big states also facilitated academia and learning and that sort of thing. Now, not everybody was in these big states. Nomadic people, take, for example, the Mongols, these are people who moved. They would, pick up and follow the herds and do that. So not everybody glommed together into these big states. Some people opted for a different way of life. Oftentimes it was predicated rural, predicated on animals, in terms of the Mongols, the horse, that sort of thing. Okay, so not everybody did this. That's the point. Okay, so unit 2, or chapter 2, excuse me, there's a lot of stuff there, but here's the big point. I hope you got this. Because our time period being tested is 1200. In the time of 1200, we had big, huge states being built in Mesoamerica, in the Middle East, in China, in Europe. It was happening everywhere. And once these empires, these big state building areas were established, they started interacting, they started trading, cultural diffusion, all that good stuff, and that got the things in motion. Okay, so anyway, I appreciate you watching, and again, keep your repositories, your flashcards, or your digital documents, keep them up to date, revisit them, and we're going to have a lot of success. Okay, and we're going to get everybody a 3, 4, or 5 on the exam in May. Okay, thank you for watching.